I never thought my life would turn into something straight out of a psychological thriller, but here I am, sitting in my attorney's office, 7 months pregnant, trying to understand how the man I married turned out to be someone completely different. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and for the past 3 years, I believed I was married to a deaf man named Daniel. Except Daniel isn't deaf. He never was. And the discovery of this lie has unraveled everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, and even myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the day we met. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Seattle, and I was working at a small nonprofit organization that provided support services for people with disabilities. I had always been passionate about accessibility and inclusion, which is probably why my job felt more like a calling than just work. That particular day, we were hosting a sign language workshop for hearing individuals who wanted to learn how to communicate with the deaf community. I was coordinating the event, making sure everything ran smoothly, when I noticed him. Daniel was standing near the back of the room, watching the instructor with intense focus. He had these striking green eyes and dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead. There was something about the way he carried himself, a quiet confidence mixed with what I interpreted as vulnerability. When the workshop ended, he approached me, and using sign language, he introduced himself. His signs were fluid and natural, and I was immediately impressed. I had been learning ASL for about 2 years at that point, so I signed back, introducing myself and asking if he had enjoyed the workshop. He told me he had been deaf since birth, that he was new to Seattle, and that he was looking to connect with the deaf community here. We exchanged numbers, and over the next few weeks we started meeting for coffee. Our conversations were entirely in sign language, and I found myself completely captivated by him. Daniel was intelligent, thoughtful, and had this dry sense of humor that always caught me off guard. He told me about his childhood, growing up in a hearing family who had learned sign language for him, about the challenges he faced in a world that wasn't always accommodating, and about his dreams of becoming a graphic designer. I fell in love with him gradually, then all at once. There was something about the intimacy of our silent communication that felt deeper than any relationship I had experienced before. We understood each other in a way that transcended words, or at least, that's what I believed. 6 months after we met, Daniel proposed to me at Gasworks Park, signing his proposal as the sun set over Lake Union. It was the most romantic moment of my life, and I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was small and intimate, held in my parents' backyard with close friends and family. My parents had learned basic sign language to communicate with Daniel, and many of our guests had taken the time to learn at least a few signs. I remember feeling so touched by everyone's effort to make Daniel feel included. My maid of honor, Jessica, had hired a sign language interpreter to ensure Daniel could follow all the speeches and toasts. Everything seemed perfect. The first year of our marriage was blissful. We moved into a small apartment in Capitol Hill, and I continued working at the nonprofit while Daniel built his freelance graphic design business from home. We developed our own routines and rhythms. I would come home from work, and he would have dinner ready, and we would sit together, signing about our days. We communicated through text when we weren't together, and Daniel used video relay services for phone calls related to his work. Everything made sense. Everything added up. But looking back now, there were moments that should have made me question things. Little inconsistencies that I explained away because I trusted him completely. Like the time I came home early from work and thought I heard the television on, but when I opened the door, it was off, and Daniel was at his computer with headphones on. He explained that he used the headphones to feel the vibrations of music while he worked, which seemed reasonable to me. Or the time we were at a restaurant, and the server dropped a tray of glasses behind us. Everyone in the restaurant jumped, including me, but I could have sworn I saw Daniel's shoulders tense just slightly before he turned around. When I mentioned it, he said he had felt the vibration through the floor. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband, the man I had chosen to spend my life with. The thought that he might be lying to me about something so fundamental never even crossed my mind. How could it? Who would pretend to be deaf? What possible reason could someone have for maintaining such an elaborate deception? The truth began to unravel on an ordinary Tuesday evening, 4 months into my pregnancy. I had been feeling exhausted all day, dealing with morning sickness that ironically lasted all day, and I decided to leave work early. I didn't text Daniel because I wanted to surprise him. Maybe we could spend the afternoon together watching a movie or just relaxing. When I got home, I noticed his car was in the driveway, which was normal since he worked from home. I quietly opened the front door, thinking maybe he was working and I didn't want to disturb him. That's when I heard it. A voice. Daniel's voice. He was talking on the phone, speaking clearly and fluently in English, with no sign language, no video relay service, just a regular phone conversation. I froze in the hallway, my hand still on the doorknob, my heart starting to race. "Yeah, I know, man. It's been crazy keeping this up for so long," he was saying, his voice casual and relaxed. "But honestly, it's worked out better than I could have imagined. She's so trusting, it's almost too easy." I stood there in the hallway, my entire body trembling, trying to process what I was hearing. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe I was hallucinating from the pregnancy hormones. Maybe I had walked into the wrong apartment. But no, this was our home, our furniture, our wedding photos on the wall. And that was definitely Daniel's voice. "Nah, she has no idea," he continued, laughing. "I've gotten so good at this that sometimes I almost forget I'm pretending. The whole deaf thing has its perks, you know? I can ignore her when I want, pretend I didn't hear arguments coming, and she always gives me the benefit of the doubt because she thinks I'm dealing with this huge disability." My knees felt weak. I reached out to steady myself against the wall, my mind racing through 3 years of memories, every conversation, every intimate moment, every time I had defended him to people who didn't understand what it was like to be deaf in a hearing world. It had all been a lie. Every single moment. I must have made a sound, a gasp or a whimper, because suddenly Daniel's voice stopped mid-sentence. I heard footsteps approaching, and then he appeared in the hallway. The moment he saw me, his face went pale. For a split second, I saw genuine fear in his eyes, but then, almost immediately, his expression changed. He started signing frantically, his face arranged in a look of confusion, asking me what was wrong, why I was home early, if everything was okay. But I had heard him. I had heard his voice, heard him speaking fluently on the phone, heard him laughing about how easy it was to deceive me. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward and spoke out loud, my voice shaking with rage and betrayal. "Stop. Just stop. I heard you, Daniel. I heard you talking on the phone. You can hear me right now, can't you?" For a moment, he continued the charade, signing that he didn't understand, that I was scaring him. But I could see it in his eyes. He knew that I knew. The game was over. And then, slowly, his hands dropped to his sides, and he spoke. "Sarah, I can explain." Those 4 words, spoken in his clear, unimpaired voice, shattered whatever remained of my composure. I started crying, not the gentle tears of sadness, but the gasping, body-racking sobs of someone whose entire reality has just collapsed. He reached out to touch me, to comfort me, but I jerked away from him like he was on fire. "Don't touch me! Don't you dare touch me!" I screamed. "How could you? How could you lie to me about something like this? For 3 years? Who are you? Who the hell are you?" He stood there, his arms hanging uselessly at his sides, looking at me with what appeared to be genuine remorse. But how could I trust anything I saw in his face now? How could I trust any emotion, any expression, when everything had been a performance? "Please, let me explain," he said again. "It's not what you think. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "You pretended to be deaf for 3 years. You married me under false pretenses. You let me learn sign language. You let my entire family learn sign language. You let everyone we know believe you had a disability. How is that complicated? That's just evil." Daniel ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I had seen 1,000 times but never with sound, never hearing the exhale of breath that accompanied it. Everything about him was strange now, foreign, like I was looking at a complete stranger wearing my husband's face. "I need to sit down," I said, feeling dizzy. The pregnancy, combined with the shock, was making me lightheaded. I made my way to the living room and collapsed onto the couch, the same couch where we had spent countless evenings together, where he had proposed to me with signs and tears in his eyes. Another lie, another performance. Daniel followed me but kept his distance, sitting in the armchair across from me. He opened his mouth several times to speak, then closed it again, as if trying to figure out where to begin. Finally, he started talking. "My name isn't Daniel Mitchell," he said quietly. "It's David Morrison. And you're right, I'm not deaf. I never have been." Even though I had already known the truth, hearing him confirm it out loud made it feel more real, more devastating. I wrapped my arms around my pregnant belly, instinctively protecting the baby from this nightmare. "Why?" I whispered. "Just tell me why." He took a deep breath. 4 years ago, I was in trouble. Serious trouble. I had gotten involved with some people, made some really bad choices, and I needed to disappear. I needed to become someone completely different, someone that the people looking for me would never be able to find. "So you pretended to be deaf?" I couldn't comprehend the logic. "How does that help you hide?" "Because it's the perfect disguise," he explained, his voice taking on an almost clinical tone that made my skin crawl. "Think about it. Most people don't look twice at someone with a disability. They make assumptions, they feel sympathetic, and they definitely don't suspect that person of being on the run. I created an entirely new identity as a deaf man, learned sign language fluently, and moved to Seattle where nobody knew me." "And then you met me," I said flatly. "And then I met you," he confirmed. "At first, you were just part of the cover, a woman who worked with the deaf community, who knew sign language, who could help legitimize my new identity. If I was married to someone like you, no one would ever question whether I was really deaf." His words were like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. "So our entire relationship was just part of your con? You never loved me?" "No," he leaned forward, his expression intense. "That's not true. Sarah, I know this sounds impossible to believe, but I did fall in love with you. I do love you. What started as a deception became the most real thing in my life. You have to believe me." "I don't have to believe anything you say," I shouted. "You've lied to me about everything. How do I know you're not lying right now? How do I know anything you're saying is true?" "Because I'm telling you the truth now," he insisted. "I could have kept lying. I could have pretended you didn't hear what you heard, but I didn't. I'm done lying to you, Sarah. You deserve to know everything." "Everything?" I laughed bitterly. "Okay, then tell me everything. Who are you running from? What did you do? What kind of trouble were you in?" Daniel, or David, or whoever he really was, hesitated. I could see him weighing his options, deciding how much to reveal. "I worked for a man named Marcus Reeves," he began. "Marcus Reeves is a businessman, at least on the surface," David continued, his voice low and tense. "He owns several legitimate companies in California, real estate, import-export businesses, a chain of restaurants. But that's all a front. His real business is much darker. Money laundering, illegal gambling operations, and he has connections to organized crime families up and down the West Coast." I sat there, my hand protectively over my belly, trying to comprehend what my husband was telling me. This wasn't just about him pretending to be deaf. This was about criminal activity, dangerous people, a whole secret life I knew nothing about. "I started working for him when I was 23, David went on. Fresh out of college, stupid and ambitious. He recruited me to work in his accounting department. The pay was incredible, way more than any of my friends were making, and at first, I told myself I didn't know what was really going on. But of course, I knew. I wasn't that naive. I just chose to ignore it because the money was too good." "So you were a criminal," I said, my voice hollow. "You were helping this man launder money." "Yes," he admitted, and at least he had the decency to look ashamed. "For 3 years, I helped Marcus hide his illegal income, move money through shell corporations, falsify records. I was good at it too, really good. Marcus trusted me with information that could have brought down his entire operation." "And then what happened?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. Every new piece of information made this nightmare worse. David stood up and started pacing, unable to sit still as he relived whatever had driven him into hiding. "There was an FBI investigation. Someone on the inside had turned informant, and the feds were building a case against Marcus and his entire organization. I didn't know about it until one of Marcus's enforcers, a guy named Tommy Costello, pulled me aside one day and told me that Marcus suspected I was the informant. "Were you?" I asked. "No," he said emphatically. "I had nothing to do with it." But Marcus didn't believe that. He's paranoid, always has been, and once he gets an idea in his head, there's no changing his mind. Tommy warned me that Marcus had put out a contract on me. I had maybe 48 hours before someone came to kill me. I felt sick. "So you ran?" "I didn't have a choice," David said desperately. "These aren't the kind of people you can reason with or go to the police about. If I had gone to the FBI, Marcus would have had me killed before I ever made it to protective custody. My only option was to disappear completely, to become someone else entirely." "And you chose to become a deaf man named Daniel Mitchell?" I said, still trying to wrap my head around the elaborate deception. "How did you even create a whole new identity?" "I had help," he explained. "There's a network of people who specialize in creating new identities for people who need to vanish. It's expensive, and it's not exactly legal, but it works. They provided me with a complete background, birth certificate, social security number, educational records, everything. I chose to present as deaf because I figured it would be the best way to avoid suspicion and limit the kind of casual interactions where someone might recognize me from my old life." "And the sign language?" I asked. "How did you learn it so well?" "I spent 6 months before moving to Seattle doing nothing but studying ASL," he said. "I worked with tutors, watched videos, practiced for hours every day. I immersed myself completely. By the time I moved here, I was fluent enough to pass as someone who had been signing their whole life. The level of planning, the dedication to the lie, it was staggering. This wasn't some impulsive decision. David had methodically constructed an entire false identity, and I had been a convenient piece of that construction." "When did you decide to target me specifically?" I asked, needing to know just how calculated this had been. "I didn't target you," he insisted. "The workshop at your nonprofit was just one of many events I attended to establish myself in the deaf community. I needed to be visible, to have witnesses who could vouch for my identity if anyone ever came looking. But when I met you, when we started talking, it wasn't part of some master plan. I was drawn to you." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't try to romanticize this. You said yourself that at first, I was just part of your cover." He flinched at my words, but didn't deny them. "You're right. Initially, I thought having a relationship with someone from your world would strengthen my cover story. But Sarah, somewhere along the way, it stopped being about that. I fell in love with you for real. The way you saw the world, your compassion, your strength, the way you made me want to be a better person. Everything I felt for you was genuine." "How can you say that?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "How can any of it be genuine when it was all built on lies? You didn't just lie about being deaf, you lied about your name, your past, your entire existence. The man I married doesn't even exist." "He does exist," David said quietly. "Daniel Mitchell might be a fake name, but the person I became with you, that was real. The life we built together, the love I feel for you, our baby," his voice caught. "That's all real." "Stop!" I held up my hand. "Don't talk about our baby. Don't you dare use our child to manipulate me." He fell silent, and we sat there in the wreckage of our marriage, the weight of all the lies hanging heavy in the air between us. I looked around our apartment, at the life we had built together, and realized that none of it was what I thought it was. The photos on the wall showed a deaf man and his loving wife, but that couple didn't exist. It was all fiction. "The conversation I heard," I said, changing direction. "Who were you talking to on the phone?" David hesitated again, and I could see him debating whether to tell me the truth. Finally, he sighed. "His name is Kyle. He's the guy who helped me create my new identity. I check in with him periodically to make sure Marcus hasn't tracked me down." "And has he?" I asked, a new fear creeping into my consciousness. "Is Marcus looking for you? Are we in danger?" "Kyle says there's been no indication that Marcus knows where I am," David said. "As far as anyone from my old life is concerned, David Morrison vanished 4 years ago. There's no trail leading to Seattle, to Daniel Mitchell, or to you." "To me," I repeated. "You brought me into this without my knowledge or consent. You put me at risk, and now you've put our baby at risk too. What happens if Marcus does find you? What happens to me and our child?" The color drained from David's face as he realized the full implications of what I was saying. "That won't happen. I've been so careful. There's no way." "You can't guarantee that," I shouted. "You can't promise me that some criminal from your past won't show up one day and destroy everything. I didn't sign up for this, Daniel, or David, or whoever you are." "Sarah, please." "I need you to leave," I said suddenly, the words coming out before I had fully thought them through. But once I said them, I knew it was right. "I need you to pack a bag and get out of this apartment. I can't be around you right now. I can't even look at you." "Sarah, you're pregnant. I can't just leave you alone." "You don't get to play the concerned husband now," I cut him off. "You lost that right the moment you decided to build our entire marriage on lies. Get out. Go to a hotel. Go to Kyle's. I don't care. Just get away from me." He stood there for a long moment, looking like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him that I was serious. Slowly, he walked to our bedroom, and I heard him opening drawers, packing clothes. The mundane sounds of a person packing a bag, something I had heard countless times when we traveled together, but now it carried a completely different meaning. 20 minutes later, he emerged with a duffel bag, his laptop case, and his keys. He stopped in the doorway, looking at me one last time. "I love you, Sarah," he said softly. "I know you don't believe that right now, but it's true. And I love our baby. I want to be a father. I want us to be a family." "We'll never be a family," I said, my voice cold, "because families are built on trust, and I will never trust you again." The door closed behind him, and I was alone in the apartment that suddenly felt like a museum of lies. Every object, every piece of furniture, every photograph held a different meaning now. I sat on the couch for what felt like hours, staring at nothing, my mind unable to process the enormity of what had just happened. My husband wasn't deaf. My husband wasn't even my husband, not really. Daniel Mitchell was a fabrication, a character invented by a man running from his criminal past. Eventually, the shock began to wear off, replaced by a crushing wave of grief. I curled up on the couch and cried until I had no tears left, mourning the loss of the man I thought I had married, the life I thought we were building together, the future I had imagined for our child. Everything was gone, dissolved like it had never existed in the first place. When I finally pulled myself together enough to function, I realized it was nearly midnight. I had been sitting in the dark for hours. My phone had multiple missed calls and texts from David, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. Instead, I called the one person I knew I could trust completely, my best friend Jessica. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy with sleep. "Sarah, what's wrong? It's midnight." "Jess," I said, and my voice broke on her name. "I need you. Can you come over?" "I'm on my way," she said immediately, and I heard rustling as she got out of bed. "Are you okay? Is it the baby?" "The baby's fine," I managed. "It's Daniel. Jess, something terrible has happened." "I'll be there in 15 minutes, she promised. True to her word, Jessica arrived at my apartment exactly 15 minutes later, still in her pajamas with a coat thrown over them, her hair in a messy bun. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a tight hug. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I told her about coming home early, about hearing David on the phone, about the confession that followed. I watched her face cycle through disbelief, shock, anger, and finally protective fury on my behalf. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment, processing. "That son of a bitch," she finally said. "That absolute son of a bitch. I'm going to kill him. Sarah, I'm actually going to kill him." Despite everything, I almost laughed at her vehemence. "Get in line. He pretended to be deaf for 3 years, Jessica said, still trying to wrap her mind around it. "I learned sign language for him. My boyfriend learned sign language for him. Your parents learned sign language for him. We all went out of our way to accommodate him, and it was all fake?" "All of it," I confirmed. every single moment. Jessica started pacing, her hands clenched into fists. And his name isn't even Daniel? He's some criminal on the run? Sarah, this is insane. This is like something out of a movie. I know, I said quietly. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and discover this was all some horrible nightmare. Have you thought about what you're going to do? Jessica asked gently. I mean, legally, with the marriage? I haven't thought that far ahead, I admitted. Right now, I'm just trying to get through the next 5 minutes without falling apart. But obviously, I can't stay married to him. I don't even know if the marriage is legal. He married me under a false name. Doesn't that mean the whole thing is void? I don't know, Jessica said, but we're going to find out. First thing tomorrow, we're calling a lawyer, a good one, someone who specializes in fraud cases. The word fraud hit me like a physical blow. That's what this was, fraud. David had defrauded me, stolen 3 years of my life, manipulated me into a marriage based on lies. And now I was pregnant with his child, tied to him forever whether I wanted to be or not. What about the baby? I asked, voicing the fear that had been growing in my mind. Jess, I'm having his baby. Even if I divorce him, even if I never see him again, he's still going to be my child's father. How do I explain this to our kids someday? How do I tell them that their father pretended to be disabled to trick their mother into marrying him? Jessica sat down next to me and took my hand. One step at a time, okay? Right now, you need to focus on taking care of yourself and the baby. Everything else we'll figure out. You don't have to make any decisions tonight. I told him I never want to see him again, I said, but he keeps texting me. He wants to talk, to explain more, to... I don't even know what he thinks he can say that would make this better. Block him, Jessica said firmly. At least for tonight. You need space to process this without him bombarding you with messages. She was right. I pulled out my phone and blocked David's number, then blocked him on every social media platform. It felt both liberating and terrifying, cutting off communication with the man who had been the center of my world just hours ago. Do you want me to stay here tonight? Jessica offered. I can sleep on the couch. You shouldn't be alone. Would you? I asked gratefully. I don't think I can be alone right now. Of course, she said, squeezing my hand. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face, or should I say Daniel's face, smiling at me, signing I love you, kissing me on our wedding day. All lies, all performance. I thought about the hundreds of times I had defended him to people who didn't understand the challenges of being deaf. I had been so proud of how we had overcome the communication barrier, how our love transcended the need for spoken words. But there had never been a barrier. There had only been his deception and my trust. The next morning, Jessica made breakfast while I sat at the kitchen table, feeling numb and exhausted. I couldn't eat much, but I forced myself to have some toast for the baby's sake. As I was choking down my second piece, my phone rang. It was my mother. For a moment, I considered not answering. How was I going to explain this to my parents? But I knew I couldn't avoid them forever, and they deserved to know the truth. Hi, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Good morning, sweetheart. My mother's cheerful voice came through the phone. I was just calling to check on you and the baby. How are you feeling? Is the morning sickness getting any better? I looked at Jessica, who was watching me with concern. Mom, I need to tell you something. Can you and Dad come over today? It's important. The cheerfulness in her voice immediately shifted to worry. What's wrong? Is something wrong with the baby? The baby is fine, I assured her, but something's happened with Daniel. I really need to talk to you both in person. We'll be there in an hour, my mother said without hesitation. After I hung up, Jessica came and sat across from me. How are you going to tell them? I have no idea, I said honestly. How do you tell your parents that their son-in-law is a complete fraud, that everything they thought they knew about him was a lie? The same way you told me, Jessica said. Just tell them the truth. They love you, Sarah. They're going to support you no matter what. An hour later, my parents arrived. My father was a quiet, steady man who had always been my rock, and my mother was warm and nurturing, the kind of person who saw the best in everyone. As I watched them come through the door, signing their greetings to me out of habit, a habit they had developed for Daniel, I felt a fresh wave of anger at what he had done. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had betrayed everyone who had cared about him, everyone who had made an effort to include him. We all sat down in the living room, my parents on the couch, Jessica in the armchair, and me in the chair across from them. My mother immediately noticed my red, swollen eyes. "Sarah, you've been crying," she said, concern etched on her face. "What's going on? Where's Daniel?" I took a deep breath and began to tell them everything. I watched as their expressions changed from confusion to disbelief to shock to anger, mirroring the journey I had taken the night before. When I finished, there was a long silence. My father was the first to speak. "He's not deaf," he said, his voice flat with shock. "He was never deaf." "No, Dad," I confirmed. "He can hear perfectly. He's been pretending this entire time." "I'll kill him," my father said, and coming from my normally peaceful father, it was startling. "I swear to God, Sarah, I will kill him with my bare hands." My mother just sat there, tears streaming down her face. "All those hours we spent learning sign language," she whispered. "All the accommodations we made, the interpreter at the wedding, the—" She broke off, unable to continue. "I know, Mom," I said, my own tears starting again. "He fooled all of us. He made us all complicit in his lie without us even knowing it." My mother wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders, and I saw the moment she shifted from grieving mother to protective lioness. "What do you need from us, Sarah? Whatever it is, we're here for you." "I need help figuring out what to do next," I said. "Jessica mentioned getting a lawyer, but I don't even know where to start. Is the marriage even legal if he married me under a false name? What rights does he have to the baby? Can I protect myself and the baby from his criminal past?" My father pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Richard Thornton. He's the best family law attorney in Seattle. He handled the Johnsons' complicated divorce last year. If anyone can help you navigate this mess, it's him." While my father made the call, my mother moved to sit beside me, putting her arm around my shoulders. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I can't imagine how betrayed you must feel. But you're not alone in this. We're going to help you through it." "I just feel so stupid," I said, the words I'd been holding back finally spilling out. How did I not see it? How did I spend 3 years with someone and not realize they were lying about something so fundamental? What does that say about me? "It says that you're a trusting, loving person," my mother said firmly. "Don't you dare blame yourself for his deception. He's the one who did something unforgivable. You were being a good wife, a good person. He took advantage of that, and that's on him, not you." Jessica nodded in agreement. "Your mom's right. This guy is a professional liar, Sarah. He created an entire false identity convincing enough to fool government agencies. Of course, he was able to fool the people who loved him. That's not a reflection on you." My father finished his call and came back over. "Richard can see you tomorrow morning at 9. I told him it was an emergency and he cleared his schedule. He's going to need all the information you have, Daniel's real name, any documentation from the marriage, everything." "Thank you, Dad," I said gratefully. "There's something else we need to discuss," my father said, his expression serious. "This Marcus Reeves person that Daniel, or David, is running from. If he's as dangerous as David says, we need to consider your safety. If this criminal somehow finds David and discovers he's married with a child on the way, that could put you at risk." The thought sent a chill through me. I had been so focused on the betrayal, on the emotional devastation of discovering my husband's lies, that I hadn't fully considered the physical danger his past might pose. "David said there's been no indication that Marcus knows where he is," I said, but even to my own ears it sounded weak. "And you believe him?" my father asked pointedly. "After everything he's lied about?" He had a point. How could I trust anything David said? For all I knew, Marcus Reeves could be closing in on him right now, and I would have no idea until it was too late. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. "I think we need to consider the possibility that you might need to relocate temporarily," my father said, "just until we can get a better sense of the real situation. Your mother and I have the cabin in Whidbey Island. You could stay there for a while, somewhere that's not connected to Daniel or David or whatever his name is. I can't just leave, I protested. I have my job, my life here. Your job will understand if you need to take a leave of absence, my mother interjected, especially given the circumstances. And as for your life here, Sarah, that life was built on lies. Maybe it's time to step away and figure out what you want your real life to look like. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. We all froze, looking at each other. My father stood up, his body language protective. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked. I shook my head. "No one." The knock came again, more insistent this time. My father moved toward the door, and I heard a familiar voice from the other side. "Sarah? Sarah, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. I need to explain something important." It was David. He had come back. "Don't open it," Jessica said immediately. But my father had already pulled open the door, and there stood David, looking haggard and desperate. When he saw my father, he actually took a step back, as if expecting to be punched. "Mr. Anderson," he started to sign, then caught himself. Mr. Anderson, Don't," my father said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Don't you dare sign at me. You can speak. You've always been able to speak, so speak." David swallowed hard. "I need to talk to Sarah, please. Something's happened and she needs to know." "She doesn't need anything from you," my father said, starting to close the door. "Marcus knows where I am," David blurted out. The door stopped moving. We all stared at David, the implications of his words sinking in. "What did you say?" I asked, standing up from my chair. David looked past my father to me, his expression grave. "I got a call from Kyle this morning. Someone's been asking questions about me in Seattle. They've been showing my old photo around, the one from before I changed my identity. Kyle thinks Marcus has figured out I'm here." "You led a criminal to my daughter's doorstep," my father said, his voice shaking with rage. "I didn't know this would happen," David said desperately. "I've been so careful. I don't understand how he found me." "Get inside," my mother said suddenly. "If someone is looking for him, we don't need them seeing him at Sarah's door." Reluctantly, my father stepped aside, and David entered the apartment. He looked around at all of us, my parents, Jessica, me, and I could see the weight of what he had done settling on his shoulders. "How did he find you?" I demanded. "You said there was no trail. You said you'd been careful." "I don't know," David said, running his hand through his hair. "Kyle is trying to figure it out, but someone matching the description of one of Marcus's men has been in Seattle for the past week, showing my photo to people who work in the deaf community, asking if anyone knows me." "The deaf community," Jessica said. "The community you infiltrated to establish your fake identity." "Yes," David admitted. "It was the perfect cover, but now it's the perfect trail. If Marcus figured out I might have posed as deaf, it makes sense he would look for me there." "Has anyone identified you?" my father asked, shifting into problem-solving mode despite his anger. "Not yet," David said, "but Kyle says it's only a matter of time. The photo is 4 years old, and I look different now, but someone will eventually make the connection." "So what do you want from us?" I asked coldly. "Why are you here telling us this?" "Because you need to leave Seattle," David said, looking directly at me. "You and the baby need to get somewhere safe, somewhere that's not connected to me in any way. If Marcus finds me and discovers I have a wife, he'll use you to get to me. You're in danger because of me, and I need to make sure you're protected." "Now you care about protecting me?" I asked bitterly. "A little late for that, don't you think?" "Sarah, I know you hate me right now, and you have every right to," David said. "But please, put aside your anger for a moment and think about the baby, our child. If anything happened to either of you because of my past, I would never forgive myself." "He's right," my father said, and I looked at him in surprise. "I hate to say it, but he's right. If there's even a chance that you could be in danger, we need to get you somewhere safe." "The cabin," my mother said. "We take Sarah to the cabin tonight." "That's not far enough," David said. "Marcus has resources. If he connects Sarah to me, he'll find the cabin. She needs to go somewhere completely off the grid, somewhere with no paper trail." "And I suppose you have a suggestion?" Jessica asked sarcastically. "Actually, I do," David said. Kyle has a safe house in Montana. It's in the middle of nowhere, completely off the grid, owned through layers of shell companies that can't be traced. Sarah could stay there until this situation is resolved. Absolutely not, I said immediately. I'm not going to some safe house set up by your criminal friend. How do I know this isn't just another one of your schemes? Because I'm giving you all the information, David said. The address, the access codes, everything. Your parents can verify it's legitimate before you go. I'm not asking you to trust me, Sarah. I'm asking you to protect yourself and our baby. I looked at my parents, at Jessica, searching their faces for guidance. This was all happening too fast. Less than 24 hours ago, I had discovered my husband was a fraud, and now I was supposed to flee to Montana because a criminal might be looking for him. I need to think, I said. This is insane, all of it. We don't have time for you to think, David said urgently. Kyle says Marcus's man has been systematically working his way through every organization and business related to the deaf community. He hit the community center yesterday. Your nonprofit office is probably next. My blood ran cold. My office. My coworkers. Oh my God, if he comes to my work, my colleagues could be questioned. They could be in danger. They won't hurt anyone unless they think those people are actively hiding me, David said. But they will ask questions, and someone there might remember seeing me with you, once they make that connection. He didn't need to finish the sentence. We all understood the implication. My father took charge of the situation, his years as a project manager kicking in. All right, here's what we're going to do. David, you're going to give us all the information about this safe house, address, contacts, everything. Then you're going to leave and have no further contact with Sarah unless it's through her attorney. Understood? David nodded. I understand. Sarah, your mother and I are going to verify this information independently, my father continued. If it checks out and we determine you really are at risk, we'll help you get to Montana. But you're not making this decision under pressure. What about work? I asked, my mind spinning. I can't just disappear. I have responsibilities. I'll call your director and explain you have a family emergency, my mother said. Given that you're pregnant, they'll understand if you need to take leave. But I can't tell them the truth, I realized. If Marcus's people do come asking questions, I don't want my coworkers to know where I've gone. We'll keep it vague, my mother assured me. Family emergency, need to be out of state for a while. That's all anyone needs to know. David pulled out his phone and started typing. I'm sending Kyle's contact information and the safe house details to your father's email. Kyle is expecting your call. He'll verify everything and answer any questions you have. How long would I need to stay there? I asked, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. How long until it's safe to come back? I don't know, David admitted, and the helplessness in his voice was almost convincing. Kyle and I are working on a solution. The best-case scenario is that we can feed Marcus false information that leads him away from Seattle. Worst case, he trailed off. Worst case what? Jessica demanded. Worst case, I turn myself in, David said quietly. I go to Marcus, confess that I wasn't the informant, try to make some kind of deal. If he believes me, if he agrees to leave everyone else alone, then Sarah can come home. You'd be killed, I said flatly. Maybe, David acknowledged, but at least you and the baby would be safe. Don't pretend this is some noble sacrifice, I said, anger flaring up again. You created this entire situation. You're the reason we're all in danger. You don't get to play the hero now. You're right, he said. I'm not a hero. I'm the villain in this story. But that doesn't change the fact that I love you and our child, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. Give us the information and get out. I can't look at you anymore. David finished typing on his phone, and my father's phone buzzed with the incoming email. It's done, David said. Kyle will be waiting for your call. He looked at me one more time, his eyes pleading. Sarah, I know I don't deserve to ask anything of you, but please, be careful. Don't trust anyone you don't know. If anything seems off, if you feel unsafe for even a second, call Kyle immediately. I said get out, I repeated. He nodded and turned toward the door, but paused with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, these last 3 years with you have been the best of my life. You made me want to be a better person, even if I failed miserably at it. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so incredibly sorry for everything." Then he was gone, and the apartment fell silent. My father immediately went to his laptop and began researching, typing furiously. My mother came and sat beside me again, while Jessica paced the room, her anger practically radiating off her. "I can't believe this is happening," I said numbly. "Yesterday, my biggest worry was whether I was going to have morning sickness at work. Now I'm potentially fleeing to Montana to hide from a criminal organization." "We're going to verify everything first," my father said, his eyes never leaving the screen. "We're not making any rash decisions based solely on what David says." For the next 2 hours, my father made phone calls and did research. He spoke with Kyle, who confirmed the existence of the safe house and the threat from Marcus Reeves. He even managed to verify through a private investigator contact that there had indeed been someone asking questions in Seattle's deaf community, though the investigator couldn't confirm the person's connection to Marcus. Finally, my father closed his laptop and looked at all of us with a grave expression. "It's legitimate. The safe house exists, Kyle checks out, and there does appear to be someone looking for David in Seattle. I hate to say this, but I think David might be telling the truth about the danger." "So I have to go," I said, feeling my world shrinking even further. "Not necessarily," my father said. "We could go to the police, explain the situation." "And tell them what?" I interrupted. "That my husband, who isn't really my husband because he married me under a false name, might be in danger from his former criminal employer." They'd investigate, which would take time, and in the meantime, if David is right, I could be at risk. "There's also the question of what happens to David if we involve the police," my mother added. "He created a false identity, which is identity fraud. He could be arrested." "Good," Jessica said viciously. "Let him be arrested. He deserves it." "I agree he deserves to face consequences," my mother said. "But if he's arrested, it becomes public record. Marcus would definitely find out where he is then, and he'd know about Sarah." We all sat with that uncomfortable truth. As much as I wanted David to pay for what he'd done, his arrest might actually put me in more danger, not less. "I think I need to go to Montana," I said finally, "at least temporarily, until we can figure out what's really going on and whether I'm actually at risk. I can't take chances with the baby." My mother squeezed my hand. "We'll go with you. We'll help you get settled." "No," I said. "If someone is watching, they might follow you. It's better if I go alone, or with someone who isn't connected to me publicly." "I'll go with her," Jessica volunteered immediately. "I can work remotely for a few weeks. My boss will understand." "Are you sure?" I asked. "Jess, this could be dangerous." "You're my best friend," Jessica said firmly. "You're pregnant, scared, and dealing with the worst betrayal imaginable. There's no way I'm letting you face this alone." My father pulled out a credit card. "Take this. It's under my name, not yours. Use it for gas, food, anything you need on the drive. We'll also get you some cash so you don't have to use cards once you're there." "How long should I plan to stay?" I asked. "Let's say 2 weeks initially," my father suggested. "That gives us time to investigate further, consult with the attorney, and figure out a longer-term plan. If you need to stay longer, we'll reassess." 2 weeks, I repeated, trying to wrap my mind around it. "I'm going to be hiding in Montana for 2 weeks." "You're going to be keeping yourself and your baby safe," my mother corrected gently. "There's a difference." We spent the rest of the day preparing for my departure. Jessica went home to pack and arrange her remote work schedule. My parents helped me pack clothes and toiletries, insisting I take more than I thought I'd need. My mother went to the grocery store and bought non-perishable food items, prenatal vitamins, and first aid supplies. As I packed, I found myself looking at the framed photos around the apartment. My wedding photo showed me and Daniel signing "I love you" to each other, huge smiles on our faces. Another photo showed us at Gasworks Park, where he had proposed. Every image was a lie, a performance captured on film. In a fit of anger, I took all the photos down and shoved them in a box, which I pushed to the back of the closet. I couldn't look at them anymore. Each one was a painful reminder of how thoroughly I had been deceived. My phone rang, and I saw it was the attorney my father had contacted, Richard Thornton. I answered, and his calm, professional voice came through. "Ms. Anderson, your father has briefed me on your situation. I want you to know that we're going to handle this carefully and strategically. First and foremost, your safety and the safety of your child are paramount." "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." "I've already started researching the legal implications of your marriage," he continued. "The fact that your husband used a false identity raises serious questions about the validity of the marriage contract. We'll need to discuss this in detail when you return from Montana, but I want you to know that you have options." "What kind of options?" I asked. "Annulment is a strong possibility, given the fraudulent circumstances," he explained. "We can also pursue criminal charges for identity fraud, though, as your father mentioned, that could complicate the safety situation. When you're ready, we'll sit down and go through everything step by step." "And what about the baby?" I asked, my hand instinctively going to my belly. "What rights does he have?" "That's more complicated," Thornton admitted. "Regardless of the circumstances of your marriage, he is the biological father. However, given his criminal history and the deception involved, we may be able to argue for limited custody or supervised visitation. But again, these are conversations for when you're back and safe." After I hung up, I felt slightly better knowing I had legal representation, someone who could help me navigate this nightmare from a legal standpoint. But it didn't change the fact that in a few hours I would be leaving my home, my life, everything I knew, because of my husband's lies. Jessica returned around dinner time with her bags packed and her laptop. "I'm ready whenever you are," she said. "I told my boss I had a family emergency and needed to work remotely for a couple of weeks. He was totally understanding." "Thank you for doing this," I said, hugging her tightly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," she said. "That's what best friends are for." We decided to leave early the next morning, around 5 a.m., when it would still be dark and there would be less traffic. My father had mapped out a route that avoided major highways initially, just in case someone was watching. That night, I barely slept again. I lay in my bed, the bed I had shared with David for 3 years, and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions and fears. What if Marcus's people found me anyway? What if David had lied about the safe house and I was walking into a trap? What if I never felt safe again? But beneath all the fear was a deeper pain, a grief that felt like it would swallow me whole. I had loved Daniel Mitchell with my entire heart. I had believed in our future together, believed in the family we were creating, and now I had to accept that Daniel Mitchell had never existed. The man I loved was a fiction, a carefully crafted illusion designed to hide a criminal on the run. Around 4 a.m., I gave up on sleep and got out of bed. I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash over me, wishing it could wash away the last 3 years as easily as it washed away soap. When I emerged, I dressed in comfortable clothes for the long drive ahead: leggings, a loose tunic that accommodated my growing belly, and a warm cardigan. Jessica was already awake, sitting in my kitchen with 2 travel mugs of tea. She had avoided coffee for my sake, knowing I couldn't have caffeine during pregnancy. It was a small gesture, but it made me want to cry. This was what real friendship looked like, someone who thought about your needs without being asked. My parents arrived at 4:30 with bags of road trip snacks and a thick envelope of cash. My father handed it to me solemnly. "There's $5,000 here," he said. "Don't use credit cards if you can help it. Cash leaves less of a trail." "Dad, this is too much," I protested. "It's not too much if it keeps you safe," he said firmly. "Promise me you'll call every day, morning and night. If we don't hear from you, we're calling the police." "I promise," I said, hugging him tightly. My mother was crying again as she hugged me goodbye. "I hate this," she said. "I hate that you have to leave, that you're going through this, that you're pregnant and scared and—" Her voice broke. "I'll be okay, Mom," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Jessica will be with me, and it's only for 2 weeks. Before you know it, I'll be back home, and we'll figure all of this out." As Jessica and I loaded our bags into her SUV, we decided to take her car instead of mine, adding one more layer of separation from my usual life. I took one last look at the apartment building I had called home. Somewhere in this city, David was hiding, waiting to see if Marcus would find him. And somewhere in this city, maybe, Marcus's people were looking for him, asking questions, getting closer. I climbed into the passenger seat and buckled my seatbelt, my hand resting on my belly. "It's just you and me now, little one," I whispered to my unborn child. "And Aunt Jess, of course. We're going to keep you safe, no matter what." Jessica started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. As we drove through the dark, empty streets of Seattle, heading toward the highway that would take us to Montana, I felt like I was leaving behind more than just a city. I was leaving behind the person I used to be, the naive, trusting woman who had believed in love and honesty and the goodness of people. The drive to Montana was supposed to take about 12 hours, but my father had planned a route that would take us closer to 16, avoiding major highways and sticking to back roads where possible. As the sun rose over the mountains and Seattle disappeared in the rearview mirror, Jessica tried to keep the conversation light, talking about work, mutual friends, anything but the situation we were in. But eventually, we couldn't avoid it anymore. "Can I ask you something?" Jessica said as we drove through the forests of eastern Washington. "Of course," I said. "Are you going to let David be part of the baby's life?" she asked. "I mean, assuming you both survive this Marcus situation and you're safe, he's still the father." It was a question I had been avoiding thinking about, but I knew I had to face it eventually. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to cut him out completely, to raise this baby on my own and never have to see him again. But another part of me knows that's not fair to the child. Every kid deserves to know their father, right?" "Not if their father is a lying criminal," Jessica said bluntly. "Sarah, this man deceived you for 3 years. He pretended to have a disability. He married you under a false name. He put you and your unborn child in danger because of his criminal past. Those aren't the actions of someone who should be raising a child." "I know," I said, "but he's still the biological father. I can't change that." "No, but you can limit his access," Jessica argued. "Supervised visitation only, maybe even require him to undergo psychological evaluation first. Sarah, normal people don't do what he did. There's something fundamentally wrong with someone who can maintain a lie that elaborate for that long." She was right, of course. What David had done required a level of deception and compartmentalization that wasn't normal. But despite everything, despite all the lies and betrayal, I couldn't shake the memory of the moments that had felt real. The way he had held me when I cried about losing my grandmother, the excitement in his eyes, fake eyes, real eyes, when I told him I was pregnant, the 1,000 small gestures of love and care that had made up our daily life together. Had any of it been real? Or was I just desperately trying to salvage something from the wreckage of my marriage? We stopped for lunch at a small diner in a town I'd never heard of, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Montana. As we ate sandwiches and fries, I noticed Jessica checking her phone frequently. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," she said quickly, but I could tell she was lying. "Jess, come on, we're in this together. If something's wrong, I need to know." She sighed and showed me her phone. "David has been texting me. He wants to know if you're safe, if you made it out of Seattle okay." "How does he have your number?" I asked. "We exchanged numbers at your wedding," she said. "For coordination purposes. I never deleted it." "What are you telling him?" I asked. "Nothing," Jessica said. "I haven't responded. I didn't think you'd want me to." I thought about it for a moment. Despite everything, David was right about one thing. If Marcus really was looking for him, I needed to be careful. And David might have information that could keep me safe. "Tell him we're fine," I said, "but don't tell him where we are or where we're going. Just that we left Seattle and we're safe." Jessica typed out a brief message and hit send. Almost immediately, her phone buzzed with a response. "He says he's glad you're safe," Jessica read. "He says Marcus's man was at your office yesterday asking about you." My blood ran cold. At my office? Did he talk to anyone I know? Jessica typed the question and waited for the response. "He talked to your director, showed her a photo, asked if she recognized the man in it. Your director said she'd never seen him before." "Thank God," I breathed. "Does David think she was telling the truth?" Another exchange of messages. "He thinks so. He says the man seemed to believe her and moved on, but he's still in Seattle, still asking questions. Ask him if we should stay away longer than 2 weeks, I said. Jessica typed, waited, then showed me the response. He says he doesn't know yet. He and Kyle are working on a plan to draw Marcus away from Seattle, but it's going to take time. A plan, I said bitterly. Another one of David's plans. Look how well the last one worked out. We finished our meal in silence and got back on the road. The landscape had changed dramatically. Gone were the lush forests of Washington, replaced by the wide-open spaces and rolling hills of Montana. It was beautiful in a stark, lonely way that matched my mood perfectly. As the afternoon wore on, we finally turned onto a dirt road that led deep into the wilderness. According to the GPS coordinates Kyle had provided, the safe house was still another 20 miles down this road, far from any town or neighbor. This is seriously remote, Jessica observed as we bounced along the rutted road. I haven't seen another car in over an hour. That's the point, I said. Hard to find means hard for Marcus to find too. Finally, as the sun was setting, we spotted the cabin. It was larger than I had expected, a well-maintained log structure with a wraparound porch and solar panels on the roof. There was a barn nearby, and what looked like a generator shed. Smoke was rising from the chimney, which surprised me until I saw a truck parked nearby. "Someone's here," Jessica said, immediately alert. We pulled up slowly, and before we could even get out of the car, a man emerged from the cabin. He was in his 40s, with graying hair and the kind of weathered face that spoke of years spent outdoors. He raised a hand in greeting, not threatening but not exactly friendly either. "You must be Sarah," he said as I cautiously got out of the car. "I'm Kyle. David called ahead and told me you were coming." I studied Kyle carefully, trying to assess whether I could trust him. He had an ex-military bearing, the kind of controlled stance and watchful eyes that spoke of training and experience. He was wearing jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots, and there was a holster visible at his hip. "You're armed," I observed. "Yes, ma'am," Kyle said without apology. "This is Montana, and we're in the middle of nowhere. Bears, mountain lions, and the occasional unwanted visitor. The gun stays." Jessica had gotten out of the car and positioned herself slightly in front of me, protective. "David said this place was safe. Is it?" "As safe as anywhere can be," Kyle replied. "This property is owned by a corporation that's owned by another corporation that's owned by a trust. There's no paper trail leading back to me or David or anyone connected to either of us. I've got motion sensors on all the access roads, cameras covering the perimeter, and satellite internet that's routed through multiple VPNs. If anyone comes within 5 miles of this place, I'll know about it." "And if they do come?" I asked. "What then?" "Then I get you out," Kyle said simply. "There's a vehicle in the barn with a full tank of gas and supplies for a week. I've got escape routes planned for every direction. But honestly, Ms. Anderson, I don't think it's going to come to that. Marcus Reeves has no reason to think you're in Montana. As far as he knows, you're just David's wife living in Seattle." "How much did David tell you?" I asked. "About us, about the situation." "He told me enough," Kyle said. "He told me he married you while maintaining his false identity, that you just found out the truth, and that you're pregnant. He also told me that you have every right to hate him, and that my job is to keep you safe regardless of how you feel about him." "Do you approve of what he did?" Jessica asked sharply. "Pretending to be deaf? Lying to her for 3 years?" Kyle's expression didn't change. "It's not my place to approve or disapprove, ma'am. I help people disappear when they need to. Sometimes those people are running from bad situations. Sometimes they're running from their own bad choices. David was running from both. What he did to maintain his cover, that's between him and Ms. Anderson." "That's a diplomatic way of avoiding the question," Jessica observed. "I'm a diplomatic guy," Kyle said with the ghost of a smile. "Now, why don't you ladies come inside? It's getting cold, and I'm sure you're tired from the drive. I've got the cabin heated and food prepared." Jessica and I exchanged a glance. We didn't have much choice but to trust Kyle, at least for now. We grabbed our bags and followed him inside. The cabin's interior was surprisingly comfortable. There was a large main room with a stone fireplace, a well-equipped kitchen, and comfortable furniture that looked like it had been chosen for function rather than style. Kyle showed us down a hallway to 2 bedrooms, both with ensuite bathrooms. "I'll take the smaller one," Jessica said immediately, leaving me with the master bedroom. "I've stocked the kitchen with basics," Kyle said. "There's a freezer full of meat from a ranch about 50 miles from here, canned goods, dry goods, everything you should need. The water comes from a well and it's tested regularly. It's safe to drink. The solar panels and backup generators keep the power running. You've got satellite TV and internet, though the connection can be spotty when it storms." "Where will you be?" I asked. "I've got a room in the basement," Kyle said. "I'm going to stay here for the next few days. Make sure you're settled and that there's no sign of trouble. After that, if everything seems secure, I'll head back to Seattle to help David with his situation. But I'll leave you with emergency contacts and protocols." "What exactly is David's plan?" I asked. "How is he going to deal with Marcus?" Kyle hesitated, and I could see him weighing how much to tell me. "He's working on creating a trail that will lead Marcus away from Seattle. He's going to plant evidence that he's in Miami, living under another false identity. If Marcus takes the bait, he'll pull his people out of Seattle and focus on Florida." "And if Marcus doesn't take the bait?" Jessica asked. "Then David has a backup plan," Kyle said, "but I'm not at liberty to discuss that yet." "Because it involves turning himself in," I guessed. He mentioned that as a worst-case scenario. Kyle's silence confirmed my suspicion. "He's an idiot," I said flatly. "If he turns himself into Marcus, Marcus will kill him." "Maybe," Kyle acknowledged, "but David seems to think your safety is worth the risk." "Don't romanticize it," I said bitterly. "This is all his fault to begin with. He doesn't get points for trying to fix the disaster he created." Kyle nodded. "Fair enough. Now, I don't know about you ladies, but I'm hungry. I've got a venison stew on the stove that's been simmering all day. Why don't we eat, and then you can get settled in?" Over dinner, Kyle told us more about the property and the security measures in place. He showed us how to access the camera feeds on a tablet, how to check the motion sensors, and where the panic room was located, a reinforced storage room off the basement with its own air supply and communication equipment. "I don't want to scare you," Kyle said, "but it's important you know all of this. Knowledge is power, and being prepared is half the battle." After dinner, Jessica and I retreated to my room. I was exhausted from the drive and the stress of the past 2 days, but my mind was too active to sleep. "This is surreal," Jessica said, sitting on the edge of my bed. 3 days ago, we were planning your baby shower. Now we're hiding in a cabin in Montana from organized crime." "I know," I said. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and discover this was all some elaborate nightmare." "How are you feeling?" Jessica asked. "I mean physically, with the pregnancy. All this stress can't be good for the baby." "I'm okay," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. "The baby's been moving normally, and I haven't had any cramping or bleeding, but I should probably find a doctor out here just in case." "I'll ask Kyle about that tomorrow," Jessica said. "I'm sure he has contacts." We sat in silence for a moment, and then Jessica spoke again. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you still love him?" she asked. "David, I mean. Despite everything he's done, do you still have feelings for him?" I thought about the question carefully. "I don't know," I admitted. "I loved Daniel Mitchell. I loved the man I thought he was. But David Morrison? I don't even know who that is. How can I love someone I don't know?" "But you must feel something," Jessica pressed gently. "You spent 3 years with him. You're carrying his child. Those feelings don't just disappear overnight." "I feel betrayed," I said. "I feel angry and hurt and confused. But underneath all of that, there's this ache, this grief for what I thought we had. I miss Daniel, but Daniel never existed. So what am I grieving? A fantasy? A lie?" "You're grieving the life you thought you were building," Jessica said. "That's real, even if the person you were building it with wasn't who you thought he was." Tears started rolling down my cheeks again. "I wanted to grow old with him, Jess. I wanted to raise our kids together, to build a family. I had this whole future mapped out in my head, and now it's just gone. All of it." Jessica moved closer and put her arm around me. "I know, and I'm so sorry. You deserved better than this. You deserved honesty and respect and real love. What if I never trust anyone again? I asked, voicing one of my deepest fears. What if this breaks me so badly that I can't ever open my heart to someone else? Then we'll deal with that when the time comes, Jessica said firmly. But right now, you don't need to worry about future relationships. You need to focus on yourself and your baby. Everything else can wait. She was right, of course. I had more immediate concerns than my ability to trust in future relationships. I needed to stay safe, stay healthy, and prepare to become a mother. A single mother, most likely. Thank you for being here, I said to Jessica. I honestly don't know what I would do without you. You're my sister in every way that matters, Jessica said. There's nowhere else I would be. That night, I did manage to sleep, though my dreams were troubled. I dreamed of David with different faces, signing to me in a language I suddenly couldn't understand. I dreamed of shadowy figures approaching the cabin and of running through the forest with my baby in my arms. I woke several times in a panic, my heart racing, before exhaustion would pull me back under. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. I found Kyle and Jessica in the kitchen, both looking alert despite the early hour. "Morning," Kyle said. "How'd you sleep?" "Not great," I admitted, "but better than the night before." Jessica was asking about medical care, Kyle said, sliding a plate of eggs and bacon toward me. "There's a clinic about 40 miles from here in a town called Riverside. The doctor there, Dr. Ellen Martinez, is someone I trust. She doesn't ask questions and she's good at her job. I can take you there today if you want to get checked out." "That would be good," I said. "I should probably have an ultrasound, make sure all the stress hasn't affected the baby." "We'll go this afternoon," Kyle said. "I want to check in with David this morning anyway, get an update on the situation in Seattle." At the mention of David's name, my stomach clenched. "Has something happened?" "Not that I know of," Kyle said, "but I like to stay on top of things." After breakfast, Kyle went down to his basement office to make his calls, while Jessica and I explored the property. Despite everything, it was beautiful here. The cabin sat in a small valley surrounded by pine forests, with mountains visible in the distance. The air was crisp and clean, and the silence was profound, so different from the constant noise of Seattle. "I could see why someone would hide out here," Jessica observed. "It's peaceful." "It's isolated," I corrected. "There's a difference." We walked down to the barn, which housed not just the escape vehicle Kyle had mentioned, a rugged four-wheel drive truck, but also supplies including camping gear, food, water, and even weapons. "Kyle is serious about being prepared," Jessica said, examining the organized supplies. "He does this for a living," I said, "helping people disappear, creating safe houses. I wonder how many people he's helped over the years. And I wonder how many of them were running from their own bad choices, like David," Jessica said. We walked back to the cabin to find Kyle waiting for us on the porch, his expression grim. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "I just spoke with David," Kyle said. "Marcus's people found his apartment." My blood turned to ice. "When? Is David okay?" "He's fine," Kyle said quickly. "He wasn't there when they showed up. He's been staying at a hotel under another name since you left. But they broke into the apartment last night, tore the place apart looking for information." "Did they find anything?" Jessica asked. "That's the thing," Kyle said, his expression troubled. "David had already removed anything that could lead them to you or to this location. But they took your laptop, Sarah, and your personal files." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "My laptop has everything on it. Photos, documents, emails." "David says most of it was backed up to the cloud, and he's already changed all your passwords and locked down your accounts," Kyle interrupted. "But there might be information on there that could help them piece together your connection to him." "Like what?" I demanded. "Email exchanges, for one," Kyle said. "Even though David always communicated with you in sign language in person, he had to use email and text for some things. If they have your laptop, they have those communications. They could potentially track down friends, family members, anyone you've been in contact with." "Oh my God," I whispered. "My parents, Jessica, everyone I know could be questioned." "David's already warned your parents," Kyle said. He called them this morning and explained the situation. They're being careful, and they know not to give out any information about where you are. This is insane, Jessica said, her voice shaking with anger. They broke into your apartment. They're going through your personal information. Sarah, this is escalating. David thinks so too, Kyle confirmed, which is why he's accelerating his plan. He's going to plant the false trail to Miami within the next 48 hours. He's hoping that once Marcus thinks he's found David's new location, he'll pull his people out of Seattle. And if it doesn't work? I asked. Kyle met my eyes steadily. Then he's going to turn himself into Marcus and try to negotiate. No, I said immediately. He can't do that. Marcus will kill him. That's what I told him, Kyle said. But he's insistent. He says he won't let you and the baby live in hiding because of his mistakes. He'd rather sacrifice himself than let you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Despite everything David had done, despite all the lies and betrayal, the thought of him dying because of this situation made me feel sick. I sank down onto the porch steps, my hand on my belly. Sarah? Jessica crouched beside me, concerned. Are you okay? Is it the baby? I'm fine, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. I just need a minute. Kyle gave me a moment, then spoke again. There's something else you should know. David asked me to give you a message. I looked up at him. What message? He says that regardless of what happens to him, he's made arrangements for you and the baby. He has money saved, legitimate money from his graphic design work over the past 3 years. It's in an account under his real name, David Morrison, and he's putting you as the sole beneficiary. It's about $200,000. I don't want his money, I said automatically. He figured you'd say that, Kyle said, but he wants you to have it anyway, for the baby. He says it's the least he can do, and it's clean money. He earned it honestly. $200,000. It was a substantial amount, enough to provide security for me and the baby for years, but accepting it felt like accepting some kind of responsibility for David's situation, and I didn't want that burden. I need to think about it, I said finally. Fair enough, Kyle said. Now, are you still up for going to the clinic? Dr. Martinez can see you this afternoon. I nodded. Yes, I need to make sure the baby is okay. The drive to Riverside took about 45 minutes on winding mountain roads. Kyle drove while Jessica sat in the back, and I watched the landscape pass by, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 72 hours. My entire life had been turned upside down, and somehow I was supposed to just keep functioning, keep moving forward. Dr. Martinez's clinic was in a small building on the main street of Riverside, a town that looked like it had maybe 2,000 residents. The doctor herself was a warm, efficient woman in her 50s who greeted Kyle like an old friend. Kyle tells me you need a prenatal checkup, Dr. Martinez said after Kyle and Jessica had been asked to wait in the reception area. How far along are you? About 28 weeks, I said. I've been under a lot of stress lately, and I just want to make sure the baby is okay. Well, let's take a look, Dr. Martinez said. Hop up on the table and we'll do an ultrasound. As she prepared the equipment, Dr. Martinez made small talk, asking about my pregnancy symptoms, my previous checkups, my general health. She was professional but kind, and she didn't ask any probing questions about why I was in Montana or what kind of stress I was dealing with. When she squirted the cold gel on my belly and pressed the ultrasound wand against my skin, I held my breath, terrified that something would be wrong, that the stress of the past few days would have harmed my baby. But then I heard it, the strong, steady whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the baby's heartbeat. There's your little one, Dr. Martinez said, pointing to the screen. Looking healthy and active, good strong heartbeat, normal measurements for 28 weeks. Do you know the sex? I shook my head, tears streaming down my face, but this time they were tears of relief. We decided to wait to be surprised. Well, baby is in a modest position today, so the surprise remains safe, Dr. Martinez said with a smile. Everything looks good, Sarah. Your blood pressure is a little elevated, which is probably due to the stress you mentioned, but it's not at a dangerous level. I'm going to recommend you try to rest as much as possible, stay hydrated, and avoid any additional stress if you can. I almost laughed at that last part. Avoid stress, right, because hiding in a cabin in Montana from a criminal organization wasn't stressful at all. "I'll do my best," I said instead. Dr. Martinez printed out several ultrasound images and handed them to me. "If you need anything while you're in the area, don't hesitate to call. Kyle has my direct number." Back in the waiting room, Jessica immediately noticed my tears and jumped up. "Is everything okay?" "The baby's fine," I said, showing her the ultrasound images. "Completely healthy." Jessica hugged me tightly. "Thank God. At least that's one thing going right." On the drive back to the cabin, I stared at the ultrasound images, studying the grainy black and white pictures of my child. My baby. David's baby. This innocent life that had nothing to do with criminal organizations or false identities or any of the mess that had brought me to Montana. "I'm going to protect you," I whispered to the images. "No matter what happens, I'm going to keep you safe." Back at the cabin that evening, after a quiet dinner, Kyle's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then stood up and walked outside. Through the window, I could see him pacing on the porch, his expression serious. When he came back inside, he looked directly at me. "That was David. The Miami trail is in place. He's planted enough evidence to make it look like he's been living there for the past 6 months. Now we wait and see if Marcus takes the bait." "How long will that take?" Jessica asked. "Could be days, could be weeks," Kyle said. "Marcus is thorough. He'll want to verify the information before he commits resources to Florida." "So we just sit here and wait," I said. "For now, yes," Kyle confirmed. "But Sarah, there's something else. David wants to talk to you. He's asking if you'd be willing to do a video call." Every part of me wanted to say no. I didn't want to see David's face, didn't want to hear his voice or his excuses, but there was a small part of me, a part I hated acknowledging, that wanted to talk to him, to hear what he had to say. "I'll think about it," I said finally. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything Kyle had told us. Marcus's people had broken into my apartment, had my laptop, had access to my personal information. David was planning to sacrifice himself if his Miami plan didn't work. And somewhere in Seattle, in the city I loved and called home, dangerous people were asking questions about me. I thought about the baby growing inside me, this innocent child who would grow up knowing their father was a liar and a criminal. How would I explain it to them someday? What would I say when they asked why their daddy wasn't around, why we lived in hiding for months during my pregnancy? My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made it clear who it was from. "Sarah, it's David. I got a new phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know something. Whatever happens to me, I need you to understand that everything I did, all the lies, all the deception, it was never meant to hurt you. I fell in love with you despite myself, despite knowing I shouldn't, despite knowing I didn't deserve you. You and our baby are the best things that ever happened to me. I'm sorry I ruined it. I'm sorry for everything. D." I stared at the message for a long time, my emotions warring with each other. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, to block this number too and never hear from him again. But another part of me, the part that had loved Daniel Mitchell with all my heart, wanted to respond, to tell him that I was scared and confused and angry, but also that I didn't want him to die. Finally, I typed out a response. "Don't do anything stupid. Our baby deserves to know their father, even if I'm not sure I can forgive you." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone and tried to sleep. The next few days passed in a strange kind of limbo. Jessica and I fell into a routine at the cabin, waking up, having breakfast with Kyle, taking walks around the property, reading, watching movies, anything to pass the time. It was peaceful in a way, being disconnected from the chaos of the outside world, but the uncertainty hung over everything like a dark cloud. Kyle spent most of his time monitoring the situation in Seattle, staying in constant contact with David, and watching for any sign that Marcus's people were moving toward Montana or backing off. Every time his phone rang, my heart would leap into my throat, terrified that it was bad news. On the 4th day, I woke up to find Jessica sitting on the porch with her laptop, working on a project for her job. I made myself tea and joined her outside, watching the early morning mist rise from the valley floor. "It's beautiful here," I said, breaking the comfortable silence. "If we weren't here because my husband is a fugitive from organized crime, I might actually enjoy it." Jessica smiled slightly. "Yeah, the circumstances definitely put a damper on the scenery." "Have you talked to anyone back home?" I asked. "Your boyfriend? Your family?" "I told Marcus I was helping a friend with a family emergency," Jessica said, "which is technically true, and I've been keeping work updated through email. But I haven't told anyone where we are or what's really going on. The fewer people who know, the safer you are." I felt a wave of gratitude for my best friend. She had dropped everything to come with me, had put her own life on hold, and hadn't complained once. "I don't deserve you," I said. "Stop that," Jessica said firmly. "You deserve all the support in the world right now. You didn't ask for any of this." Kyle emerged from the cabin with his phone in hand, his expression unreadable. "Sarah, David wants to do that video call today. He says it's important." My stomach clenched. "Did something happen? Is Marcus—" "No, nothing like that," Kyle said quickly. "Marcus's people are still in Seattle, but they seem to be investigating the Miami lead. David just wants to talk to you. He says there are things he needs to explain, things you deserve to know." I looked at Jessica, who squeezed my hand. "It's your call. If you're not ready, you don't have to do it." But I realized that I needed to hear what David had to say. Not because I was ready to forgive him, but because I needed to understand. I needed to know who this man really was, beneath all the lies and deception. "Okay," I said. "I'll talk to him." Kyle set up the video call on a laptop in the living room, positioning it so I would be comfortable on the couch. Jessica hovered nearby, protective, while Kyle gave us privacy by stepping outside. When David's face appeared on the screen, I was shocked by how different he looked. He had dark circles under his eyes, his face was gaunt, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. But it was still his face, the face I had loved, the face I had kissed and smiled at and woken up next to for 3 years. "Hi," he said softly, and hearing his voice again made my chest ache.